Um, my name's Charlie Irvin. I am the director of the Mediation Clinic, and Pauline, who's set all this up and has organised it, is the coordinator of the clinic. And we work with students at the University of Strathclyde, many students and former students over the years. So in recent years, I've realised the idea of a mediation clinic, which I borrowed from the USA, has become a more global concept, and it's a concept with many, many different manifestations. So the brand or the idea, it is quite broad and it allows for a number of different ways. All of them, I think, built around the idea that those who are learning their skills as mediators can also be offering a service to the public. And that two-way street, bringing society into the world of learning and teaching and bringing the world of learning and teaching into society, has been the driver of the clinic. So today is a celebration. This is our second conference. The last one was smaller. This is much bigger and I think more diverse. We briefly, I don't want to use up people's time too much. We have Jill Harrison from University of Western Australia. I'm delighted to have you in Glasgow, Jill. We have Nina Gersamia and George, now I hope I get this right, George, Amirkaniani, is that a close approximation, from Georgia, from the University of Georgia, and we're delighted to have you. Then we'll have a pause for question and answer. Just in terms of the programme, if you have questions during the first two speakers, can you put your questions in the chat? And then Pauline or I will try to put the questions in a order. We might find there are some repeated ones to the first two speakers. Then after that, we'll have three more speakers. Deborah Cunningham Graham is joining us from King's College London. I'm looking forward to that. Faiza Miraj is joining us from Bangalore in India. And then finally, Ivor Heyman, who is an advocate at High Court in South Africa. But Ivor, I think, are you based in England today? Or Scotland? I can't see you.
I'm here, and I'm just putting myself back on for you. I'm in South Africa at the moment.
You are in South Africa, but thankfully the time zones it's just down the earth rather than round it. That's great. Okay.
Thank you so much, Charlie and Pauline, for inviting me here today, and to all of you who are on the screen. I can see some of you, and it's very exciting for it to be such a global happening here today. Charlie, when I was speaking with Charlie and Pauline, and the topic for the presentation today around lessons learned, so I framed my my presentation around that, but I've been just so interested to hear how the clinic here is working. So it's caused me for a lot of reflection overnight and this morning. So I might digress a little bit on this this PowerPoint presentation. So I hope you'll forgive me for that a little bit as we go along. But I thought it would be good to just tell you a little bit about the UWA Mediation Clinic. So I've been training and practicing in mediation since about 2005, but I didn't establish the clinic until 2018. And that was established with a fair pot of money that had come into the law school through the mediation training that I'd been conducting since 2012. 2012 was when the National Mediation Accreditation Standards came in Australia. So off the back of that, I started training many lawyers in facilitative mediation. The standards are a facilitative mediation model, and they contemplate parties being in the same room. So that is our standard of mediation in Australia, and I started teaching that to lawyers. And then in 2018, I had a bit of a dream for a clinic, and like Charlie was saying, I looked at clinical education models in the US and New Zealand, a few around the world, and I set up the the clinic, and the intention was to provide a free and low-cost mediation service, and it could have been any type of mediation. It wasn't confined to family or workplace or court-based mediations. It was just to be a free and low-cost mediation service. And the hope was a place for the people we were training to develop their mediation skills and offer pro bono services. I am essentially a researcher, so it was also to be a research clinic to build the evidence-based practice of mediation in Australia, and partnerships with industry partners and the courts. I also established a clinical legal education unit for law students for credit, and thought that it would be a good idea for other disciplines at UWA to develop master's courses and PhD research projects in mediation. My thoughts were around psychology mostly, because I have a psychology degree as well as a law degree, and we at the clinic we're more psychology based than perhaps we are law based in our thinking. So we started to talk to the psychology department at UWA, and we started to toy around the idea of a master's. And I was most interested to hear what Charlie has set up here at the university here. But what did actually happen over the last 7 years, it hasn't turned out as we expected. So we are a specialist mediation service, but we didn't get a lot of cases coming through. We thought that being in a law school, my office was situated next to a pro bono legal service called Law Access, which was to provide low-cost legal services for particular clients. And the director of that did our mediation training, but no cases came from Law Access to us. Cases, even though we advertised on the website, UWA website, we advertised around UWA campus to alumni. When I say advertise, it wasn't a full-on advertising campaign, but we said, here we are, and we have a free or low-cost mediation service to offer. But we just didn't get cases coming through, it was a surprise. It didn't tend to bother us all that much, because we were busy still doing our training and our research and so on. But it was a surprise that the channels didn't open and that we didn't get the cases coming through. So that's the mediation service. So therefore I've blanked out the place for mediators and lawyers to develop their mediation skills and offer their services, because we didn't get the cases. So it didn't turn out that we could help out our trainee mediators and provide a place for them to learn. We did develop into a research clinic, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. We did also keep our partnerships with industry partners and the courts happening. So one thing that did transpire was that we developed an outreach mediation service for the Children's Court of Western Australia, and that was mediating violence restraining orders that students would put on one another. So high school students were putting violence restraining orders on each other, and that would go to our Children's Court in Western Australia, and we developed an outreach mediation service for that. That was quite successful, and then the Children's Court decided to bring that back in-house upon our advice. We said, this has been good, this has worked. We trained up the registrars of the Children's Court, and so they're now running a mediation service in their court. We did run a clinical legal education unit for students, and the hope there was that those students would be mediating, but as I said, no cases came through. So that turned into really a research unit. But we have continued since I've been running the mediation practice and skills unit, which was called Negotiation and Mediation. That's been run at UWA as a single standalone unit, elective unit, since 1998. So that's still going, that one unit. And then when the accreditation standards came in, we've been running it for the last 3 or 4 years, where the law students can take it as a option unit, and then they can pass, if they pass the tests for accreditation, they can then become accredited. Interestingly, the students do the unit and love the unit. It's still one of the most popular units in the law school, but not many of them go ahead and do the accreditation part of it, which is also a little curious. And I was speaking with Pauline just now, describing how, and again, this is a joy for me, but I do not mean this as a slight on lawyers, because I do know the great merit in having lawyers in mediations and as mediators. But we have noticed a change in the last 2 years where lawyers have stopped coming to our training courses, and we're getting more psychologists into the courses, which is great, because it means I don't have to answer the question, why would you have parties in the same room? And isn't this all about settlement? And what happens if they don't settle? Does that mean that I've failed? Those sorts of questions. So psychologists don't ask those questions. They ask different questions. Their questions are more around, they find it difficult to get to outcomes, whereas with the lawyers, we're holding them back from moving to outcomes too quickly. So it's horses for courses, but we're having the psychologists coming into the courses is great, because Western Australia's workplace laws changed, and it said that workplaces must try and resolve conflict before taking other courses of action. So what's lovely about it is that there's more focus on understanding conflict, which is really our basic philosophy at the UWA Mediation Clinic, is how is it that the two of you got into conflict and why? And so we help facilitate parties coming to understand why they're in conflict and how they have behaved in their conflict. So the other thing there is we set up a training. It's probably not enough time to go into this, but Australia has a standalone certification which is called Family Dispute Resolution, and that's set up by our Attorney General Department, and that's it's a little less facilitative mediation model. It's a dispute resolution model, so it is focused more on settlement. So that's what transpired, as opposed to what we thought it might look like, the clinic. And where we're headed now is actually quite interesting. I'm not going to grieve the lack of clients coming through. Instead, we've just decided to change focus for the clinic, and we've now become a hub of clinical research, which I'll speak about just very quickly. Just on time, what time are you hoping that I will finish this, Pauline? I know we started late, but I can.
It was to be a 15-minute talk, so I don't know how that. So you probably got about another 5.
Great. Okay. All right. Thank you. So yes, I'll move on the slides. So we have one of our mediation participants who had just recently finished a master's degree in diplomacy at Geneva University. She's come on board, and she's the director of the International Centre for Mediation and Diplomacy. We don't know what that means yet, but like our whole clinic, it evolves into something that it needs to be. So she's working on that as we speak, and what that might look like. We have really expanded our community of practice. So whilst people aren't coming into the clinic to practice after their training, we do have a lot of events, a LinkedIn page, and we have a lot more happening around the community of practice for mediators in Perth and Western Australia. So that's been another of our initiatives that we've expanded. We are a dedicated training centre now. Actually, our time is taken. When I say our, I work with my colleague, Dr. Darren Moroney, who's a psychologist. He's back in Perth at the moment, holding the fort and running about 1 million training programs. So we just find that we could run a AMDRAS training course. We could run one every 2 weeks with the amount of demand. So we really are just focusing on our training. But what the beauty of our training, I think, and the thing that gives me the greatest joy is that we feed our research findings straight into our training. So we're very much known for updating our slides in the moment as we're training. Darren and I will be talking and we'll say, oh no, we've discovered this works well. So we'll immediately put that into our training slides. And this has come about because what the clinic has ended up being is a place where we get from the courts, from Department of Education, from Department of Justice, from the University Executive, from various places around Western Australia. Darren and I get sent, or the clinic gets sent, the very, very pointy end cases. So like our children's court violence restraining orders with children, which turned out to really be about the parents more than the children, we're getting very, what does Darren calls them the edge cases. They're the cases that just can't be resolved. And from that, we've started to look more closely at coercive control. And we just ran a CPD for our community of practice where 150 people came to hear us talk on what the differences were between narcissistic and coercive control from our findings that we've been finding in this research. So that is where we have found ourselves. We have found ourselves as a clinic, I suppose, of sorts, but a clinical case study research clinic. And it's, it's been interesting listening to what Charlie and Pauline have created here. I'm a little bit wistful that the clinic didn't evolve like I thought it would, but at the same time, it's evolved where we need to take it. So lessons learned, go with the evolution. We couldn't stop it anyway. We've gone from research, practice and training back to training and research. We have the entire time we have maintained the integrity of the model of practice, which is the facilitative model. So we have never come off that. We've added psychology into that, which explains why it works. And we've never stepped off that to go into other models of practice. And I suppose patients, they will come. Whoever we build it for ends up coming into the clinic. So I thought that was a nice way to end the lessons that we've learnt at our clinic. So thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you so much. Fascinating glimpse of the way that, just like real mediation clinics have to be flexible and adaptable. And that's certainly been our finding. We'll quickly hand over to Nina and George from Georgia, University of Georgia. If you have slides to share, can you press share? And we'll hand over to you. And I'll just give your title. The journey of students in a mediation clinic, integrating learning, practice and professional growth. Over to you.
Hello, everyone. First of all, I would like to express my sincere thanks to the organizers of this conference, in particular the International Mediation Clinic Network, the University of Strathclyde, especially Pauline, who has always been so attentive and supportive throughout this process. For several years, we have had the pleasure to participate as a delegates in this, but in this time we are joining the active participants. So always bring such interesting topics at the participants present them in such way, always engaging well. I would also like to start with greetings everyone joining us today from UK, Africa, India, Australia. It's wonderful to be connected with all of you. My name is Nina Kersamia, and I'm a lawyer and mediator, head of the Early and Effective Dispute Resolution Mediation Center at Grigol Robakidze University. Today, I'm excited to present our topic, the journey of students in the mediation clinic, integrative learning, practice, and professional growth. I am pleased to introduce my colleague also, Professor Irakli Kandashvili, Chairman of Mediators Association of Georgia, supervisor of our mediation clinic and mediation center. He will be joining us.
Good day, everybody.
He will be
with you.
Us during the Q&A session. Additionally, I would like to introduce my student, Georgi Amirkhaniani, who will also be participating in the conference and sharing his experience. Thank you all for being here, and I'm looking forward to engaging and insightful session. It's a great pleasure to share the story of our mediation clinic, a story built not only by educators and professionalism, but most importantly, by our students. Three years ago in Tbilisi, we established the clinic with the vision of creating a space where the learning, practice, and personal growth meet in one living system. From the very beginning, our students were not just participants, they were co-creators of this process. They were involved in every stage of establishing the center, starting from logo designing and shaping our identity. This collaborative start give our clinic a unique spirit, one of the shared ownership, teamwork, and creativity at all. It also reflected the sense of mediation itself, collaborate and the mutual respect. Our mission of this mediation clinic serves as a bridge between the theory and the practice. It combines academic learning with the real-life mediation experiences. Students receive structured training in mediation principles and ethics, and they engage directly in the real mediation cases without our private mediation center, always under, of course, professional supervision. This gives them a rare opportunity to apply their knowledge in a safe and guided environment. Supervision is the foundation of our model. It transforms practice into learning. Through feedback and reflection, students build their confidence, empathy, and their professionalism. Under supervision, they learn not only how to facilitate agreements, but how to understand people, how to listen, how to manage emotions, and guide dialogue with respect. In just 3 years, the clinic has become a vibrant learning and practice platform. Today, we are proud to say that 2 of our former students have officially become certified mediators. One of them achieved this within a special project focused on national minorities, and meaningful example of how mediation contributes to inclusion and dialogue in Georgian society. Another of our graduates has joined the Mediation Association of Georgia, where the experience gained in our clinic played a crucial role in the professional development. Our works go beyond individual cases. We currently have about 10 trainers specialized in mediation who conduct education sessions in schools. This program aims to raise awareness about peaceful conflict resolution, cultivate a culture of dialogue in young people. Through these outreach activities, the clinic contributes not only to student learning, but to the broader mediation culture in Georgia at all. So about challenges and reflections, our course growth becomes the challenges, balancing the study and real cases demanding, facing emotional, ethical complexities requires maturity and support. These experiences that help our students to transform from learners into reflective practitioners and help us as mentors to keep the learning ourselves. Supervision gives structure and meaning to experience. It allows students to explore their strengths, recognize their limits, and find their own voice as a mediators. It's through the guided reflection that they move from doing mediation as truly being a mediators. So in a moment, my student George will share his own and personal reflections, the challenges, the skills he gained, and how the supervision shaped his journey. The stories speak louder than any data, so they show what he will show that what it means to learn mediation by living it. Looking ahead, our goal is to continue, of course, building bridge between education and the practice to extend our community partnership and to support new generation of mediators who will strengthen dialogue in Georgia and beyond. Thank you for attention. And now George will join us.
George.
George, where are you?
Nina, are you controlling the slides or is George? I think I've frozen. Hello?
I'm
Nina,
not sure what's happening, Charlie.
we seem to have lost George. I wonder.
He is
if
online.
He is
He is
online.
online and he's unmuted.
Okay.
George, could you give us a hello if you're there?
You might be
Hi
muted.
everyone, can you listen in?
Oh, he's here.
We can hear you.
Yes, I'm here on my microphone. Yes. So good morning, esteemed
Can you put
guests,
your
colleagues.
screen on? Yes, I see you now. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Good morning, esteemed guests, colleagues, professors, and friends. Today we have gathered to discuss a topic that isn't merely a legal institution, but a way of our life. It's mediation. Mediation isn't just a process or a method of dispute resolution. It is much more than a formal or procedural mechanism. It's a value deeply rooted in our daily lives, relationships, and culture of thinking. It teaches us how to listen to another, how to understand different perspectives, and how to find that middle ground where truth and agreement meet. It's throughout mediation and in principles that we can grow into the kind of people our state, legal system, and society truly need. Mediation teaches us how to be responsibilities, the importance of this dialogy, and the power of values throughout which agreement triumphs over confirmation. I personally experience that this sense and deeper meaning of mediation as a mediation center of Grigol Robotics University led by Minister Samia. The center became for me not only a place of knowledge, but also a very big motivation and personal growth. There I realized that mediation isn't merely a legal procedure, but a natural human ability. It's the desire to listen, to understand, and also, of course, to help others. As a project coordinator, I had to honor of working on various initiatives aimed at promoting mediation among young people. We organized conferences in schools where we discussed with students the art of negotiation, peaceful conflict resolution, and the values that shape individuals into better citizens. Our goal was simple, to show children from an early age that negotiation isn't a weakness, but a strength, and that true leader is someone who can listen, during conflict, not just insist on being right. We have already contributed mediation workshops and informal sessions in more than 20 schools, reaching over 7,000 students. Throughout the activities, young people have been introduced to the culture of mediation and the values of peaceful conflict resolution. The positive feedback from both schools and students give us a lot that such projects have a dual impact. They only inspire and educate others, but also help us grow, of course, personally refining our communication, leadership, and empathy skills with every new encounter. Furthermore, we were actively involved in university projects that gave students a lot of opportunities to explore the practical side of mediation, to develop a lot of skills, to learn this cooperation. And it was particularly important because this mediation has been an active legal institution, Georgia, since 2020, and it was a large part of society still does not fully understand what was this mediation, what is this was the sense. It was nothing that only Grigolovakiza University and the Tbilisi State University are the two higher education institutions in Georgia where mediation is taught as a mandatory course in the Faculty of Law. It's not only a step forward in educational development, but also in cognizance in the consequences of the next generation. Students who study mediation acquire the ability to become not only good lawyers, but also rebuilders of these relationships. A particularly valuable experiment was attending mediation session. These mediation sessions was where at every stage you realize how important neutrality, fairness, and these truly are. Students of Grigolovakiza University were granted the exclusive opportunity to observe such sessions with full procedural competencies, transforming theoretical knowledge into practical experiments. This is not only a professional lesson, but also an inner one, a lesson in patience, motivations, and humanity. From professional experience, I can say that attending a real mediation session was truly transformative. After the process, after this confidentiality, we have a lot of opportunities to analyze case together with the mediator. We evaluate, give the parties' behavior, communication strategies, and the paths of lead to agreement. Under the mediator's supervision, this reflection became an invaluable learning moment. It taught us how to review conflict object, understand each party's perspective, and recognize the crisis point of the reconciliations begins. I would also like to highlight our cooperation with Mediation Association of Georgia, within which only two universities, Grigolovakiza University and Tbilisi State University, were granted the unique opportunity to participate in the second stage of mediation qualification exam. Exams, this stage involves a simulated mediation process where students play the roles of parties themselves, allowing them to experience mediation in a practice to depend their understanding of conflict management culture. And then we analyze everything, this process together with the evaluators and attend the assessments that prospective mediators and invaluable, but this experience, this was the biggest experience for us. And in this way, we observe mediations not only for the participants' perspective, but also from the evaluators' viewpoint. So, which gives us the opportunity as a future mediators to develop skills, critical analysis, observation, and of course, professional assessment. Ultimately, for me, mediation is not only a tool, but for me, mediation is philosophy of life. It teaches me that always pace toward agreement, that no conflict is too great for theology to ease. And if we as a young generation bring these principles into daily lives, not only as legal professionals, but also as citizens, we will truly to be able to build a society where justice, harmony, and mutual respect form the foundation of the state. I want to say thank you for your attention, and I would like to conclude with a one simple call. let us be the carriers of the idea of mediation, not only words, but in our actions as well. Thank you, Porian, for your attention, and thank you for this greatest meeting.
Thank you so much, both of you, George and Nina. It's fantastic and great to get another glimpse of the different ways that mediation clinics can develop, and particularly that sense that there's something transformational about seeing the real thing and the real thing happening and having the chance to talk to mediators about what they do. And that's really fascinating. We will continue with the third of our speakers, Deborah Cunningham-Graham from King's College London. Deborah, we can see your title in front of us, using mediation to build and maintain strong working relationships between PhD students and their supervisors, which I am fascinated by for various personal reasons as well. So Deborah, over to you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Charlie, and thank you and Pauline for inviting me to talk this morning. I'm a life science academic, and I've also got a role in supporting PhD students and supervisors through their PhD journey, because we noticed there were a number of conflicts between these parties that we couldn't quite resolve using standard academic regulations. So what I want to I give you a bit of introduction, then talk about how we structure our standard welfare support, and then how we've tweaked that to include a mediation scheme. So postgraduate research is a balancing act, very much a balancing act between the positives, where you get a degree of intellectual curiosity, you get to learn things, you get to share things, collaborate. And then all the negative things, there's not enough funding, you work too hard, things don't work, and workload piles up. So for both students and supervisors, there's this balancing act going on. So at King's, and other universities, the core research group are 2 supervisors. There's and then the project, and it's almost like a living organism. If any one of these things is off kilter, something wrong with a student, something wrong with a supervisor, or the project's not going well, there can be problems that arise. So that's level 1. Student-supervisor relations are very unique, in working life. So students are not employees, so they can't be treated as such. So supervisors are not line managers, they can't be dictatorial. But balancing that against students work on projects that are funded and often designed by their supervisors. But students need to learn to own their projects, to take them forward, so that by the time they finish their PhD, they are the experts in that topic. So there's very much a balancing act going on, and how that balancing act is navigated is one of the issues that comes up. So right at the very beginning, we encourage students and supervisors to set up a student supervisor agreement, things about how they will interact, certainly during the first couple of months, but encourage them to be flexible and adaptable, so that as things change, as life events come, they can revisit it. And there's additional information from within the school, within the faculty, at induction and refresher for supervisory training to support that message. So the second level within King's that we have, outside the core project group, lots of our students are part of MRC DTP programs. So there are program managers that support the students. We also, within each department, have what we call postgraduate coordinators, which are experts, experienced supervisors who are able to deal with some of the disagreements that come up. And then each student has a thesis committee. So there's a thesis committee chair who has a pastoral and academic oversight. So they have a dual hat. and then they have 2 experts, and they have meetings every 6 months to monitor progress through the project and pick up any issues that may be coming up with the project or between the student and the supervisor. The other thing we've noticed is that given the fact that students are paying fees, and they're very much becoming buyers of a service. So they will come to one of the support people and want us to give them off-the-shelf strategies to sort their issues out. So we're trying to get the message across that they have to be active, that we are enabling them rather than providing them with solutions. And that's something we've learned over the last 5 years. There's an increased passivity, and I don't know whether COVID is to blame for that. But we're supposed to be enabling, not fixing. So having got the core project group, the departmental support, then there's a school support, which basically provides a bridge between local support and faculty level support. So our PGR leads are looking after a group of departments, and they have even more expertise in dealing with problems that crop up. And alongside the PGR leads, we have confidential advisors who are people that signpost students to various support networks within the university. And all these groups, I have done some work with them so that they know what mediation is. They understand how to refer to our mediation service. And then at the faculty level, a few years ago, because of the number of issues that were cropping up, the university put some money aside to fund my role, which I do 1 day a week, to look after both the academic and the welfare needs of students, working with the vice dean and the confidential advisors to try and see whether we can get a handle on some of the problems that come up. And above that, obviously, there's the university level support across all the faculties. So we have a fair degree of support for students. So why do we still getting issues that crop up that seriously derail projects? So one of the things we've worked out is that head knowledge is not crisis knowledge. When there's a problem, when your supervisor has shouted at you, when your student has not delivered yet again, or when there's an issue between 2 students in the lab, it goes into panic mode. Help me, sort it out for me. So the message is, and then they don't know where to go. The information is there, they have it. So we've put some publicity out there to try and mitigate against that. And we also emphasize passive versus active problem solving. And I've put a series of welfare posters round the departments to remind students where they can go. So I was fortunate in that the university trained me as a mediator with the idea that I would set up a mediation support service to try and deal with some of these issues that crop up. Like with, the first speaker with Jill, we didn't get the number of mediation cases coming through that would go to full mediation, but we do still get a lot of this isn't working, I don't like this, I don't like that, can you help me with this? So we're still getting the issues cropping up. So over the last few months, I've been sort of thinking about how we can change what we're offering. So evolve the offering. I worked out that I spend a lot of time, and the PGRs spend a lot of time in what I call discovery meetings, trying to unravel exactly what the problems are. And I have also set up some more in-depth conversations. So I want to talk to you a bit about how we have evolved the offering of our mediation service. The first thing is that people don't, when I talk to students in inductions, and I'm suddenly talking about problems that are going to crop up, you can see the looks on their faces and they look terrified. So trying to put a more positive spin on it, to make it, to de-shame it, so that it's not a big problem. If you've got a problem with your supervisor, it's not a big issue, because students are very wary of writing things on their progress, their 6-monthly progress report, or mentioning them in their thesis committee meetings, because they feel that that message gets back to their funder. And if they're not achieving, they're worried that their funding is going to be withdrawn. They're worried about problems with their PhD progression. So spending a bit of time on these discovery meetings has been useful, because then you can see, well, if they don't want to do mediation, if they don't want to come face to face with their supervisors and say, you shouted at me, why did you do it? Or the supervisor has to say, well, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, you're failing your PhD. So I'm looking at trying to put up maybe coaching and mentoring type activities. There's a support for study process, which is a written process, which is a super scary one, because they have to produce evidence of emails and conversations and to try and get to the bottom of why things aren't working. And then failing that, there's the formal complaint. But in order to build the relationship, I spend quite a bit of time running what I'm now calling insight sessions, where students want to talk about the perfectionist trap comes up a lot. My supervisor wants me to, my figure legends aren't right. They keep going on about my figure legends being right. When is enough is enough? I've got all these experiments to do. I want to move on. So there's that kind of conversation. There's the owning the project, that transition. I want to do this, but my supervisor says that I can't do this. Why can't I? They're stopping me. So there's all these kind of conversations that come up in these insight sections, which are kind of, a cross between counselling and coaching, and trying to do mediation without the other party. I quite often in these sessions say to students, I'm going to step out of mediation and talk to you as your welfare lead, just to give them a bit of information to try and change that narrative that they've got, that everyone's out to get them, it's all wrong. It is not their fault at all. So to try and change that narrative a bit. I think mediation skills-based supervision is a good way forward, because we all know that supervisory requirements through a PhD change. You can see in this graphic at the beginning, students need an expert guide. As they gain in confidence, they need a quality controller. Are the results right? How could I tweak it? And then you've got all these life events coming on. They might have babies, they might get sick, they need to social life, they need to network. And then crunch point comes at upgrade. And then I need to get more results, I need to finish. And then they do finish. So I think using mediation type skills at these crunch points can help minimize some of the conflicts, because they are the times at which students come to me with issues, or tempers flare, or that kind of they give up and want to take a break in studies, or and then all the time supervisors are thinking, well, I need these data, I need these data, we wrote this grant, I need them for another grant. So there's all these issues that come up. So I think that training supervisors in mediation skills helping them to build active listening, really listening to what your student's saying, really trying to find out what's going on, providing a structure for working through them, finding empathy, thinking about each other and trying to understand each other. People from international non-UK universities, supervisors from non-UK universities, trying to work in a UK university setup is difficult. It's not natural. It's like crisis. When you're in crisis, you think to where you have been trained previously, rather than the situation you're trying to work within at the moment.
Deborah, I'll
yeah.
just give you a kind of 2-minute alert.
Yeah,
thanks.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll skirt through this slide. This is just to give you some ideas about what crop up with things that crop up. I've done some training and do more training on difficult conversations, stressing that it's meant to be a win-win conversation. It's not meant to be airing your grievance against the other party. It's meant to be taking their feelings into consideration to find a solution that would work for both of you. And then in our mediation, we can't do, because of the inherent power imbalances, it's very often a senior experienced supervisor, maybe with clinical workload. Students are relatively inexperienced, and quite a lot of the PGR support staff are not professorial. So you're trying to do the speaking truth to power and trying to get that power imbalance minimized. And then we have to do a flexible format. We cannot do a one-day mediation. It's impossible to schedule. So we've adopted, we can do face-to-face, e-mediation, shuttle mediation, and maybe even shorter meetings. Do 1 hour, go away, have a think about it, have some homework, think about it, come back. And one of my most successful mediations, by successful, I mean it's worked and the mediation agreement has held, started as an e-mediation. We did a face-to-face and it was multiple meetings over several days. This is just to show that we've taken the process of mediation and we're building on those mediation skills to maintain and build student supervisor relationships, which is the core of success. Then there's a few acknowledgements. My associate dean, who's helped me get trained, UK mediation, the dispute resolution, and the International Mediation Institute. Thank you very much for listening.
Fantastic, Deborah. Thanks so much. I really appreciate you racing through that. Yeah. And again, we're seeing the need for adaptability and flexibility, and all of the things that mediators require in the running of a clinic type service. So I see quite a number of questions are starting to pop up. So thanks for that. And I'll thank Deborah, and I will now invite Faiza Meraj, who is from Vidyas Hill University. I'm now hearing a horrible echo of myself. So I'll hand over to Faiza as soon as Deborah, can you find a way to stop sharing? I don't think we can do that. That's brilliant. Faiza, could you start sharing your slides, your topic from the classroom to the conflict zone? How student mediators are quietly reshaping justice.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Can everyone see my slides properly? Hello?
That's a yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you, sir. So, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Fiza, a third-year BLLB honors student from Vidyas Hill University, Bangalore, India. So first of all, it's my privilege to present my paper in an international mediation conference. And the title of my paper is From the Classroom to the Conflict Zones, How Student Mediators Are Quietly Reshaping Justice. So as we all know that mediation is a voluntary, confidential, and non-adversarial way of resolving disputes, where a neutral mediator helps parties communicate and reach an agreement. Unlike litigation, mediation shifts the focus from winning to understanding. It treats disputes as shared problems to solve rather than battles to win. So, as its core principles, it promotes peace, dialogue, and empathy, qualities that are essential for the future lawyers. So, the study have 5 main objectives. First, to examine how mediation clinics function within law schools, to analyze the impact of student mediators in promoting access to justice, and to see how mediation is integrated into India's legal education system, to identify challenges student mediators face, and finally to suggest measures to strengthen training and institutional support. The key questions include: how do mediation clinics bridge legal education and community engagement? In what ways do student mediators contribute to access to justice? How has mediation been integrated into India's legal education framework? And what key challenges and learning experiences shape the student mediators? Lastly, how can universities institutionalize mediation training effectively? So, this presentation is adopting a doctrinal research, which is a mixture of both primary and secondary resources, wherein I have analyzed both the case studies from mediation initiatives in India. So the key findings, I will start from my key findings, which is why mediation matters. So, mediation is not just a legal process, it is a social need. It reduces the court backlog and delays. It restores relationships, especially in family and community disputes. It trains the law students in empathy and communication. And most importantly, it expands access to justice to people who can't afford these lengthy litigation. From classroom to conflict zones, student mediation clinics are bridges between theory and practice. Though through these clinics, students move from classroom into real conflict spaces, which is police stations, community centers, and home in distress. They learn to listen before judging, to value dialogue over debate. In continuation, each mediation becomes a lesson in humanity, teaching patience, neutrality, and compassion. These experiences transform young students into professionals who see law not as a punishment but as a tool to restore harmony. So they become voices of peace, which is quietly shaping justice, where it is one conversation at a time. So how India is adopting mediation? India's mediation journey began with the Section 89 of the CPC, which is Civil Procedure Code, 2002 to 2005, which has promoted settlement outside courts. In continuation, then in 2005, the Supreme Court formed the Mediation and Conciliation Project Act to institutionalize mediation, and recently the Mediation Act 2023, which was enacted on 15 September 2023, to give mediation a statutory foundation, which is making pre-litigation mediation mandatory in both civil and commercial cases. And now, from 2024 to 2025, the Bar Council of India has made mediation a standalone compulsory paper in law curriculars within clinical training. And this marks a huge step in integrating mediation into legal education nationwide. What is the role of Bar Council of India and the legal education? So the BCI, which is Bar Council of India, has now promoted new legal education guidelines from 2024 to 2025, which is directing all law schools to include mediation as a subject and to establish mediation clinics, and also to ensure supervised practical training. This ensures that uniform training and it prepares every law student to be skilled a mediator. So, how Indian universities have adopted mediation. So, there are several universities which has already taken the lead of the which BCI has mandated, which is the first one is NLSIU, which is in Bangalore, India, which is offering a legal service clinic and mediation course. Next is NLIU, which is in Bhopal, India, which runs active mediation projects, and the other universities, which are Galgotius, Amity, Savitha, Shraddha. They are the partner with police and community centers to help in family disputes. So these examples show that how that mediation is no longer just an academic subject. It's a real world service that law students are providing. And the role of students in mediation, which is student mediators are taking now part in the mediation role, which is a direct practice. They intake counseling and actual mediation under supervision, and the community outreach, which is they create awareness drives and legal literacy programs, and the research and policy, they document cases and suggest improvements for them, and the interdisciplinary work, which is they collaborate with NGOs, psychologists, and the social workers. So this dual role as a learner and a service providers, they are making legal education more meaningful and impactful. So the Indian case studies, these are the few real examples, which is first one is from the Galgotia, Noida, FDRC, which is the Family Dispute Resolution Clinic, where a police university is a partnership. They are resolving 170 out of 200 cases, family disputes in 2024. And NLSIU Legal Service Clinic, they are long-standing model for student-led pro bono mediation. In continuation, there is the Savita School of Law, Madhyam Center 2025, which is providing both student training and community mediation center service. So these models show that how collaboration between universities, police, and communities can bring mediation to the grassroots level. So why mediation should be mandated? So mandating mediation education, it ensures skill formation, which is communication, negotiation, and ethics, and access to justice for marginalized communities, and policy alignment with National and Bar Council of India initiatives, and the public value as students actively are helping resolve disputes in society. The key challenges which are faced by student mediators, they also face, student mediators also face the real challenge, that is emotional stress from intense disputes. They parties are skepticism due to their younger age, and they are balancing neutrality with empathy and limited institutional recognition. But with these challenges, they also learn resilience, emotional intelligence, and the true value of justice. So, in conclusion, mediation clinics represent a quiet revolution in Indian legal education. Student mediators are not just learning the law, they are living it. Their work shows that empathy, dialogue, and understanding can achieve what litigation often cannot. And to strengthen mediation, I have recommended setting up mandatory mediation clinics in every university, which BCI, Bar Council of India, has also mandated, and the supervised clinical practice with documented case portfolios, and formal partnerships with the police, NGOs, and the family dispute resolution courts. And they should monitor and evaluation through a national database, and recognition and funding from Bar Council of India and state legal services. So these steps will make mediation training more standardized and meaningful. So as I have put the references also. That's it. Thank you.
Faiza, thank you so much, and I really, really do appreciate how effectively you stuck to time. That was but a very impressive sweep, I think, through. As an outside observer, I've been noticing India in the last few years. Particularly impressive from a country like Scotland is the judicial support and the fact that the courts are actually very strongly supporting movement towards mediation. But it's brilliant to see that the same kind of energy going into initiatives at university level and for young practitioners. So yeah, excellent. Thank you so much. So
Thank you, sir.
we're more or less on track. I'm going to, and any questions, please put them in the chat. I'm now going to turn to our final contributor, Ivor Heyman, who is in South Africa, and he's going to be talking about navigating cultural expectations in mediation clinics.
Okay, so thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to present at your conference. I want to thank the Strathclyde Clinic and the International Mediation Clinic program that you've got running. From what I've seen, you've been able to draw mediators and practitioners and educators from all parts of the globe, and that's extremely exciting to see, and I'm very, very, very enthusiastic about being a part of this. Just a couple of words about my own experience. I am a practicing barrister, or as they call them in South Africa, an advocate. I'm also accredited mediator here in South Africa, but I started off my mediation career in the United States, where I got mediation experience at the Washington, D.C. Office of Human Rights. And I also then was able to do several mediations in their clinic, or let's call it the mediation program, which dealt with employment discrimination cases. And so I sort of got my feet wet doing that. And then when I came back to South Africa, I also was accredited as a mediator, and it's given me an opportunity to look at mediation from a cross-cultural perspective, which I'm just going to deal with in this discussion. I've also spent a year in the Philippines, where I was more of an observer there, watching mediation being implemented as part of their court system, and so I'll bring in some of my experiences with that as well. Okay, so my presentation is a little bit different from those that have come before me, because there's been an academic focus, and I'm very pleased to see how mediation is coming out and becoming more of a practical and more of a real life option in academic circles. What I'm going to deal with is a little bit different. I'm just going to talk a little bit about how cultural expectations and cultural issues arise in mediation, so that when you're dealing with a cross-cultural dispute, you're able to look at that dispute maybe with new lenses. So we're now living in a world that's very multicultural, as we've seen, and cultural differences are so integral now to the way in which conflicts are playing out. And so it's important for us as mediators to really think about what are those cultural differences when you are dealing with the mediation between people who have come from maybe different backgrounds, maybe speak different languages, have different understandings of what conflict is about. And that's really where my focus is going to be, is what does conflict mean to people coming from one culture versus another? And as you commence your mediation work and start to mediate actual cases, keeping that cultural lens open is so important for mediators, because if you don't keep that lens open, a conflict might not resolve, and it might not actually have been anyone's fault other than just lack of appreciation of the cultural differences. So mediation clinics, as we've seen now, are laboratories for mediation. They are the place where mediations are now being tried and tested, and people are gaining valuable experience doing that work in a supportive setting, academic setting. And so now the question then becomes, how does one develop the cultural literacy needed in order to be an effective mediator once you come out of the clinic? So as I mentioned, I've been involved in 3 jurisdictions. I started off as a mediator in the US, mediating now in South Africa, and I've had some exposure to the Philippines. So I'm just going to talk just briefly about these 3 different cultural milieus in order to give you a sense of why cultural lens and cultural perspectives and what we're now calling cultural literacy is so important. So in the Philippines, their concept of conflict is very, very different possibly diametrically opposed to that of the US. It's conflict is very understated. People emphasize harmony over stating things in your face, and saving face and saving dignity is of greater importance there than, how should I say this, than perhaps getting the conflict out in the open. And so it's crucially important to understand what a person is saying when they say yes. Sometimes if you ask them a question, they say yes, it doesn't mean yes. Sometimes if they say, do you believe this issue is resolved? Is it really resolved? And so sometimes we have to take the time and the patience to deal with what's not being said, not only what's being said. And that was possibly the best and biggest learning opportunity for me when I saw how it was reading between the lines and understanding what the silences meant. That's what made an effective mediator there. South Africa has got, as we know, many different cultures, many different communities, many different subcultures. And there, for example, 11 national languages that are spoken in the country. So when people come into a mediation setting here, you're dealing with so many cultural overlays. And there's an emphasis on what we call Ubuntu, which is approaching the conflict from a communitarian perspective. So there's that emphasis. But in reality, people are often stuck in their own cultural perspective, and they can't really see what it is that the other person is fussing about. And so, it becomes very important to be clear from the outset. So we do a lot of emphasis here on the agreement to mediate and helping people to understand exactly what it is that's going to happen in the mediation, because here in South Africa, mediation is not well understood and it's not well known to members of the population. So they come into a mediation often through a court and next process. That's really where I'm encountering them often. And they're sitting there in front of you and they don't really know what it means to be in mediation. So we have to take the time to explain to them that they are given an opportunity to resolve their dispute without it having to go and be decided by a court. And so it's important for people to understand that their needs and what they wish to come out of that conflict are going to be respected and are going to be appreciated. And so if they don't want to resolve that conflict, they will be given that right. And if they decide that mediation isn't working for them, they can stop the mediation at any point. And this is difficult for people who may not understand what the mediation is. It feels like they're being pushed there. The magistrate or the judge has sent them into mediation, and they may not even want to be there. And so they have to decide whether they want to use it as an opportunity. So ideas about coercion, about, about what the government's role in your lawsuit is, whether you want to grant recognition to the other side. These are universal questions, but they have a certain kind of manifestation here in South Africa. Turning then a little bit to the United States, where I started out, there's a very strong focus on people being able to assert themselves in a mediation and being able to express what they want to say, diametrically opposed, as I explained earlier, to the actual process in the Philippines. And so there you have to be able to manage sort of a high level of engagement with the parties, and you have to be quite procedurally focused and be clear about where the mediation is going, because otherwise parties can sort of take it in directions that may not be intended. So it's important there to understand that people feel that they have a right to speak out, to voice their objections, to voice their indignation, and it's about how to manage that. That becomes important in a United States situation. So as we think about clinics and how this might translate back into mediators mediating in mediation clinics, it's important, as I mentioned earlier, to create a sense of cultural literacy that needs to be a part of the mediation process. And when I talk about cultural or comparative simulations, it's important when teaching mediation, in my view, to run the mediation through different scenarios, helping people to understand what are the cultural expectations and perspectives that are going to be inside the minds of the people that are mediating those cases. And then when mediations are done, it's important for people to be able to debrief and talk about what were the issues that came up in that mediation and why was something so stubborn and difficult to settle? Why couldn't we move forward and be able to look at that through a cultural lens? And I think then that leads us to where we are now in this sort of conference, where we start to share perspectives about the ways in which mediations are playing out in a country like India, which looks like it's moving forward and with great strides. And then what you can then do is allow these students to bring their own predispositions, their own understandings, and then compare and contrast that with other cultural approaches. So I think what's being done now with Strathclyde, inviting all of us from all over the world, is to really get that cultural literacy to become developed. So once mediators are trained to see conflict through these different lenses and to recognize that they bring their own cultural blind spots into the mediation, that will enable mediators to become more accepting of the different ways in which people look at conflict and deal with conflict. And that becomes what cultural literacy and cultural sensitivity is the thing that we're attempting to build now. So I think that what happens is, there's a quote here, mediators learn to see conflicts through another culture. They don't only resolve disputes, they're expanding justice. But it's more than that. They're expanding their sense of empathy. They're expanding their sense of what the conflict might mean to different parties. They're expanding their understanding of what a resolution of that conflict means. Sometimes a conflict might not resolve in our Western mindset of, okay, there's a settlement agreement, there's an understanding reached between the parties, and now everybody's on the same page. Maybe that's not what the conflict needs to be about. So as we think about conflict and we think about these cultural perspectives, then we're able to be more intelligent and more skillful in the way that we deal with them. So thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this presentation.
Thank you, Ivor. Again, very much appreciate it. Can we just, first of all, let's just thank all of our participants. And it's been an absolute whirlwind through a number of different angles and perspectives. As Ivor said, the clinics themselves are increasingly, and I think my own program is a good example of this. I have students from all over the world, and a couple of times it has occurred to me that language brings its own cultural baggage, and of course the hegemony of English can be a significant factor in its own right. But it was suggested to me a couple of years ago that we had a number of Chinese students. Wouldn't it be interesting if they were to mediate in their own language? How would they do it? Of course, it would be difficult for me to understand what was going on. So I think there's some great, interesting challenges there. But the concept is fascinating, and we need to run with all of them. Now, okay, and I see some nice stuff appearing in the chat. So.
Thank you, everybody. It was really good. Thank you.
My pleasure. Pauline, is there anything else I should have said or should be saying?
No, that you've wrapped it up very well, Charlie. Thank you. We'll be in touch with everyone with this.
It was really great. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Great. Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
To everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye, Bill.